Yeah, good morning. I hope we can hear each other. I would like to say a very big thank you to every one of us that have made it and been able to see Nigeria at 60. Most importantly, it's very heartwarming that we're all celebrating 60 years of nationhood. Yes, the amalgamation was in 1914, but the independence was in 1960. Today, CED Magazine is doing something quite unique. Unique in the sense that at every point in time, we try to create platforms that bring about innovation, conversation that brings and also build the nation Nigeria, especially within within the construction and engineering industry. What is important is that today we are celebrating this very important milestone. CED Magazine, like I said earlier on, has always done something that is unique and quite important. Important in the sense that we've always tried to create platforms that bring conversation that grow national economy and the nation at large. Today is not an exception. When Nigeria gained independence in 1960, we do understand that the colonial masters, as we would like to call them, bequeathed the country some form of infrastructure and the likes. However, over time, we want to believe that we've grown and have built new infrastructure since then. But today, what is the reality of the nation's infrastructure? And that is why CED Magazine, as always, tried to create a conversation that will bring about something that we will be proud of at all times. The publication, like we all know, started in 1993. And since 1993, we've always created these platforms that brings conversation and also put together all the built environment. I would like to call it the seven legs: engineers, architects, quantity surveyors, ST surveyors, surveyors, builders. We've always put them together to try to hold conversation around nation building. Today, we are going to be unveiling later on 60 outstanding Nigerian professionals, construction industry professionals. These 60 professionals have done one way or the other, put together some major milestones in terms of the growth of the nation's economy and the infrastructure sector. I'd like to welcome all our participants to this webinar. And this webinar is in two parts. The first part is the conversation. And the second part is the award ceremony. Most importantly, the second part, we see the unveiling of 60 professionals, outstanding professionals in this industry, from architects, estate surveyors, and the likes. Today, we've been informed that later on, we've asked the Vice President, who may join us for just 5 minutes in this conversation, but we also have the representative of the Lagos State Governor, His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu. They're represented in this conversation, in this webinar, by Engineer Mrs. Adeyoye, who is going to be talking most importantly about Lagos State infrastructure growth over the years, because as we know, Lagos State was the federal capital city of Nigeria before it was moved to Abuja. And the pressure on infrastructure in Lagos is enormous. So she'll be sharing with us some of this conversation. Now, we are also going to be having other conversation in relation to power. Engineer Ife Oyedele, who is the executive director at the Niger Delta Power Holding Companies, will be sharing with us the issue of power and how we can get power right in this country. And that seems to be a major conversation every now and then. We will also be talking about energy, the mother of the engineering sector, Engineer Mrs. Solumaduka will be talking on the energy perspective. So I think we have a very, very full house today. And our chairman for today, Engineer Otis Ayeji, the former president of the Nigeria Society of Engineers and president of West African Engineering WAFEO. His Royal Highness Engineer Otis will be speaking with us first to lay the foundation for this conversation. And then, like I said, the theme of this conversation is Nigeria at 60, searching for infrastructure reality. I'd like to confirm that Engineer Otis is with us, and so that he can take over from here to lay the foundation for this conversation.
Thank you. Yes, I've been unmuted.
Okay. Yes, like I said, Engineer Otis, His Royal Highness, Engineer Otis Ayeji, is the Chairman Chief Executive of Otis Engineering Nigeria Limited, one of the nation's pride in terms of power and mechanical engineering. And His Royal Highness is going to lay the foundation for this conversation today and talking about Nigeria at 60, searching for infrastructure reality. Engineer Otis, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, the CEO, CED, Mr. Vice President yet to join, the Governor of Lagos State, represented by the Special Advisor, Presidents of professional associations and regulatory institutions, eminent professionals, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me really great pleasure to have this privilege of chairing this session of discussions during this our 60th anniversary as an independent country, and to talk about searching for infrastructure reality. And one thing that gives me even more joy is that although I've been asked to lay the foundation for our discussion, to my mind, I think Mr. President had actually laid the foundation for this discussion yesterday when he talked to us about our founding fathers understanding the imperative of structuring their national identity using the power of the state and working towards unification of Nigerians in a politically stable and viable entity. He then, as a point of departure with that philosophy, noted that that guided the foundation that was laid for the growing nation, which then was at 45 million people, and with urban population of 7 million and area of 910,768 square kilometers. That, of course, meant work, and it meant serious construction work to be able to get these 45 million people to live peaceably and meaningfully and pursue prosperity and happiness within this area of 910,000 square kilometers. And the president then drew our attention to the fact that at the present moment, we had moved from 45 million in population to over 200 million within the same area, and now with increased urban population of 52%, which is more than 100 million people living in urban areas. Of course, in a way, that means quite a lot of construction work has been done, but it also means that quite a lot more needs to be done so that maybe if we try to reduce the population of urban dwellers, or the people who live in the urban areas, it will see the construction of very much amenities to all parts of this country. And so, with such responsibilities staring us, this discussion becomes really very timely. And so timely that we also should realize that in the past 3 years or so, Mr. President has been harping on this. In fact, we could say that is his mantra of producing what we need here locally in Nigeria and manufacturing what we consume. He had said it in the budget speech in 2016. He had repeated it in 2017 in the Economic Growth and Recovery Plan, EGRP, which is incidentally going to expire this year and to be replaced by yet another policy document. And we see that the basic economic objective of a country, as we could see if we refer to the Constitution, Section 16, we will see that this issue of harnessing the resources of the nation and promoting national prosperity and an efficient, dynamic, and self-reliant economy is all hinged on construction. So it is a constitutional matter. We are charged from the Constitution to go ahead and construct Nigeria into a prosperous, efficient, dynamic, and self-reliant country. So our discussion should bear that in mind, and also note that on the intellectual level, a lot of effort has been made on policy, legislations, and even regulations. Of course, there is room for improvement, and that is what I believe that we are going to harness from this array of brilliant, experienced participants and speakers today. We would like to have some review of what has happened in these areas of policy, legislations, regulations. We also would like to know what we are doing about construction materials and construction machinery and equipment. How are we getting about that? What has happened so far with standards, codes of practice, and it would be good. I believe there are some of us here who are from the financial community, and we would like to talk about financing of construction projects, because there are certain things that have happened in the past few years that have been a source of great concern about what is the nature of finance, especially finance coming from outside the country. If we are receiving finance from another country. We do not have any opinion on that, especially if it is a loan. If we are getting a loan that will be paid back, most likely by taxpayers' money, should we just take everything that the person or the country bringing the money says? Or do we negotiate it as the loan also being, in a way, our money in the future? We want to also look at certain legal aspects, the type of contracting that we have had in the country, and examine how that has helped in completing projects and also in frustrating projects. We want to look at environmental planning, because this charge to construct Nigeria into a prosperous and efficient entity has to do with tampering with the environment as we met it. And so it is important that we are conscious of what our activities bring upon the earth as we have met it. And we want to hear about construction project management. We want to also look at what is happening in training. We do not have a construction university yet, but certainly there is a construction technology institute that has come in place in the past years, and there could be other things happening which we would like to know. Maybe some of I can see some vice chancellors on board, and we would like to know what is happening with respect to the academic foundation for construction management. And very important, the participation of professional firms and professionals in construction activities in the country. I can see some chairmen of ACEN and other professions here. It will be good that we come out from this discussion having a clear idea of how we have featured our firms and our professionals in the massive construction activities that have been going on in the country. And we also will need to look at safety. Safety engineering. I know that the Factories Act since colonial times has been there and has provided the foundation for safety engineering work in industry, construction included. But I know also that Koren, for example, Koren especially, had come up with some regulations that also have addressed the issue of safety engineering. And I think I can see past president of Koren in the House, and we would like to know what is really going on in that. And then, very important, the security. There are certain construction aspects that deal with national security. There has been clamor, of course, for such to be left to Nigerians, Nigerian firms and Nigerian professionals. We may also find out what actually is happening with that, especially from our government representatives, the special advisor representing the governor, and others that are in the house. And I think I've already talked too much as just somebody who is kicking off the event. I am also all ears and would love to learn from the wisdom of you eminent professionals in the built environment and construction industry. So I say welcome and thank you for listening. I think that the CEO of CED will now get into the next aspect of this discussion. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, sir. We truly appreciate that starting lineup and the conversation and how you've actually line up what we should be expecting from our speakers. I think without wasting so much time, I would like to invite Engineer Mrs. Olumaduka to speak to the issue of energy. I believe she's with us. Engineer Mrs. Maduka, I know she has prepared her papers more than a week ago. So let's listen to Engineer Mrs. Maduka on energy. I want to also believe that Engineer Oyedele is with us.
Unmute me. Okay. Now.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Thanks. Now, good morning,
Thank you very much,
all participants, and happy 60th anniversary of our independence. And Your Royal Highness, Engineer Ayeji, it's nice to see you again. Now, I'm going to talk generally. I'm not going to talk to the paper I prepared.
10 minutes.
Your Highness, how many minutes do I have? 10 minutes. Okay, so
that's about
I'm not going to read the paper I have or whatever. Just talk generally. And the first thing is to define infrastructure. I said infrastructure refers to the basic facilities, services, and installations that a country or an organization needs in order to function properly. For a whole nation, it includes all the physical systems such as roads and rail networks, utilities, sewage, water, telephone lines and cell towers, air control towers, bridges, oil and gas equipment, and so on. Now, these systems tend to be capital intensive and high cost investments, but they are vital to a country's functioning, economic development, and prosperity. Infrastructure is a major contributor to economic development. They are basic essential services that should be put in place to enable development to occur. Infrastructure development is in fact what marks a civilized country from a developing country. If you notice, most civilized countries have fully developed infrastructure in all its ramifications. So development in whatever dimension, therefore, cannot result in good, healthy living if the infrastructure such as telecoms, transport, energy, water, health, and so on are not present. Direct investment in infrastructure is capable of promoting positive externalities in terms of making available production facilities and at the same time lowering costs associated with trade transactions while generating employment opportunities for the people. Conversely, the efficiency of infrastructure constitutes a serious hindrance to sustainable growth and development, and possibly worsen poverty levels. A number of studies have documented positive relationship between economic growth and infrastructure development. These studies have maintained that investment in infrastructures directly affect economic development, and that the only avenue a country can explore to attain reasonable growth potentials is to commit resources to the provision of infrastructure such as good roads and all the things I've mentioned. Now, considering that infrastructure is a very wide project, the topic, it encompasses almost everything. I decided to focus on energy infrastructure. Now, energy on its own is very wide, because when you are talking of energy, energy is the lifeblood of the global economy, a crucial input into the production of nearly all of the goods and services of the modern world. It is therefore an area that requires continuous focus and investment. Energy infrastructure encompasses traditional utilities such as oil and gas, the different equipment and plants that go with them, including pipelines, processing plants, and so on. Electricity transmission lines and sources, which include coal, water, as well as technologies such as advanced electrical metering and distribution systems, smart building systems, and power plant control systems. It is the structure that enables the large or small scale transportation of energy from producer to consumer, as well as directing and managing of the energy flow. Cheap and abundant availability of energy is a prerequisite for economic development, with the potential to have a multiplier effect on growth. It is widely regarded as a propelling force behind any economic activity and indeed industrial production. Stable, reasonably priced energy supplies are central to maintaining and improving the living standards of billions of people. As Peter Vosa explains in his opening message to the report Energy, the oxygen of economy is energy. Without heat, light, and power, human beings cannot build or run the factories and cities that provide goods, jobs, and homes, nor enjoy the amenities that make life comfortable. Energy, of course, is the capacity to do work, while power is the rate at which work is performed or energy is transmitted. Electric power is therefore the rate per unit time at which electrical energy is transferred by an electrical system. Now, I will talk a little bit about power system, because it is about the most important. Although oil and gas fuels our economy, I'm not going to dwell too much on it. I will just mention that in oil and gas, there are three elements, subsectors that people consider, and that is the upstream sector, the midstream, and the downstream sector. The upstream sector consists the drilling of crude oil. I'm not going to go into all the engineering and so on. Consists the drilling and processing of the crude oil which comes from drilling, mainly these days from under the ground. It used to be just a bit sub-ground when the technology was not very developed. And this is processed into the different elements. Now, the midstream is generally the pipelines that carry this oil to the different processors. And so you have big pipes, small pipes, mid pipes, depending on the amount of this oil that you are transmitting. As I said, I'm not going to go into any full details of this. Now, the downstream, in fact, is what has been giving us in Nigeria a lot of problems all these years. The downstream is the processed part of oil and gas. Crude oil is processed into different products. Petrol, different types of products, lubricants, and so on. And gas, as we can see now, is in fact being compressed or processed either as to give us fuel, and is now the new darling of the developed world because gas gives clean energy. And some of us were fortunate to be associated with maybe one or more parts of crude oil production, gas production, and processes. If you look at climate change, now climate change is talking of pollution. It's been discovered over time that in fact crude oil in its processed form gives a lot of pollution. Burning petrol, burning diesel, and so on can produce a lot of pollution. And with climate change, people have tended to turn to gas, which was discovered to give clean energy. Nigeria used to be one of the worst countries for pollution because most of the oil produced comes out with what we call associated gas. And associated gas is burnt off while oil is being produced. And we find that associated gas produced a lot of carbon dioxide gases. And this is what the main element in pollution and in ozone layer depletion. So, in flaring this gas, Nigeria used to be one of the major contributors to atmospheric pollution. But when the Nigerian LNG was established. A few days ago, I think sometime last week, I was at another meet discussion like this, where the chief executives and so on from the oil industry were discussing associated gas. I think we are now reduced to number 2 or 3 in the arena of pollution, because most of the associated gas is now being fed into the Nigeria LNG, which is producing compressed gas, which we ship abroad, and LPG, tons and tons of LPG. And in fact, I think the minister last year, or maybe early this year, declared a decade of gas. And that means that this will bring me now to my own NGO. And that means that within the next 10 years, Nigeria will be completely a gas country. It's proposing to use compressed natural gas for firing generators for autos, that's for motor cars and buses and so on. And more importantly, to produce and to bottle cooking gas. I have an NGO, Friends of the Environment, where we encourage women to adopt LPG cooking gas for their cooking. Because in some of our surveys, we found that women contribute a lot to environmental degradation. That is, women go into the forests to fetch wood, and the more wood women fetch, the more they create desertification. Therefore, we are encouraging women to shift to LPG usage. And if in fact the Ministry of Petroleum Resources is listening at this stage, I will plead with them, because the high duty has just been slammed on LPG, whereas we should be reducing the cost, at least for housewives. Once this is done, because I learned that the latest increase is going to be about 20%. Once this is being done, no matter what campaign we at the other end we are making, cannot be effective, because it will be completely out of reach of the ordinary and rural women. So I'm using this platform really to appeal to the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, especially the minister, to please have a second look at this increase in the cost of LPG, to assist him in translating and transforming Nigeria into a gas country. Now, as I said, most of the work that some of us have done has been in gas, oil and then gas. And now I'm just going to mention very briefly renewable energy. Although LPG is supposed to be, it's not renewable, but it's sustainable and clean. We have renewable energy, which is coming very strongly on stream. Again, as a substitute for the national energy system, which is not nearly enough at all. I will go quickly to what I have. I won't spend too much time on renewable energy. The most common renewable energy at present is solar energy in Nigeria. We have wind energy in the chain. We have wind energy. We have different types of energy. But the most common with us in this country is solar, and is generating quite a bit of energy usage again in our rural area and people who are not served by the country's electricity grid. And even if you are served with the electricity grid, some of us up to now do not have more than maybe 6-10 hours electricity a day. And renewable energy is coming strongly into the arena. Developed foreign countries are finding a way around this. We are trying to see if solar panels can be produced economically. Right now, from our own experience, we find that solar system is still out of the reach of most families, except where there is a communal installation where people can plug in. So renewable energy is very efficient and environmentally friendly in generating electricity. We can classify some of our energy systems into renewable energy, like the dams that we have. I think the first dams were constructed, the very first one was opened, the Jeba Dam in 1985. Shiroro Dam was opened in 1990, as well as Zungeru. And all combined have a total power output of 1900 megawatts. And you know that this energy is a renewable energy. And but for electricity, communal electricity, that's public power supply, I'm afraid Nigeria is not fared very well there. Nigeria, up to now, has not produced consistently more than just over 5,000 megawatts. Whereas a country like South Africa, maybe with about a quarter of our own population, is producing over 40,000 megawatts. So we are talking of a far cry in this country. And we have a lot of work to do in this system. The paper I have has different types of things in that, but I'm not, as I said, I'm not reading the paper. I'm not going to go page by page. It will be too much. And so, the government, in its wisdom, decided to invite Siemens. Siemens have a very good reputation in the production of power and other infrastructure systems. And from what some of us have been able to gather, Siemens has signed an agreement with our government. In the document I was looking at, the first phase of the Siemens document, this Siemens agreement, we look at the situation of power in Nigeria so far, do some necessary adjustments, reduce the load losses, and where the transmission lines are not good enough, I'm happy we have an expert in that line in this panel. So we are saying that by the time, it says, Siemens said that by the time they are done, the first phase would increase our supply to 7,000 megawatts. That is just looking after some of the losses where the capacitor bank is inefficient, correct it, and so on. And is hoping to have 7,000 megawatts by 2021 and 11,000 megawatts by 2023, and finally by 2025 to have 25,000 megawatts. And the government has set up a special purpose vehicle, SPV, to monitor and supervise this project. And I'm happy to say that the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers is a member of this SPV. Now, although a power generation target of over 25,000 megawatts by 2025 is ambitious, the actualization of the dream of stable electricity supply depends on its achievements. And that will, however, depend heavily on the political will, adequate funding, and the further implementation of the roadmap which has been produced by Siemens for this reform. The federal government will also need to continue providing support, financially and otherwise, to power projects to ensure investors remain comfortable with the credit worthiness of key government agencies that are intrinsic into the system and its proper functioning. Now we'll come back to Nigeria LNG. The Nigeria LNG signed an agreement or a contract to extend the number of trains in that system. And this is happening, and we are hoping to conclude. It was announced yesterday that some other utilities are going to be privatized. Some of us were heavily involved in the setting up of the Nigeria LNG. And we are pleading that in divesting from these utilities, proper studies have to be done. Again, the government should take minority shares. Although I learned that in the utilities, in fact, I learned that the federal government has only 40% shares and the private sector has 60. It doesn't look it. What's the sort of service we are getting in all these utilities? It's still as if, I'm sorry to say, it is 100% government, because the staff are still not trained to respond to complaints, to behave different from being a government civil servant. So in conclusion, I would like to touch, because that is where this is pinching all of us. Infrastructure is one of the systems where a lot of manpower can be utilized if we put our minds to it. What is the position with our young people? The reason we are having so much crime, security challenges, and so on is because most of our young people are not put to work. A friend phoned me two days ago, a professor in Unilag. He told me that this is something which has been paining him. It's been giving him sleepless nights. And that night, he couldn't sleep. And he said, why don't you talk to so and so? This young woman graduated in industrial mathematics. She finished her youth corps 5 years ago, and she's not had any job. So I said, I'm retired. I'm no longer in active business, but let's see what we can do for the young woman. And she made a 2-1. I think they call it 4.3 or 4.2 or whatever these days. But she made a 2-1. And for that sort of young person not to have any work is really an indictment on our system. So I would like to, luckily, we have the essay to the governor of Lagos State in this audience. My sister, Engineer Aramide Adeyoye. I'd like to put this challenge to you, that you should please see what you can do with mopping up the unemployment in our system. If Lagos State can lead the way, in fact, I'm sure other states will follow. How about not using Julius Baja or any of these other, not that they are not good, they are very good, or some of these other mechanized construction companies, and we use our young people. There is no young man who would have been on site for 12 hours who's going to have time to go and be stealing or to go and be making trouble. So this is our problem. All the elections that are, because infrastructure ties in into everything. All our elections tying in now, where our politicians are making use of these young people, especially young men, to foment trouble, is because these young men have no job. How about using them on construction sites? How about using them to maintain some of our infrastructure system, whether men or women? I see them, I purposely tune to the Indian channel sometimes, and I see their men and women, young men and young men, carrying the usual pants we used to use in those days on their heads to construction sites, to and fro from construction sites. You don't find very sophisticated machinery on their road construction or even some of the other construction. So I thought I would use this to conclude what I've been talking about. Thanks for bearing with me. Kenneth, thanks very much for inviting me to this discussion. I hope I didn't disappoint you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you. Thank you. I think you did very, very well, and especially do something about our youths. It's Engineer Yedele. I know he's with us now. Engineer Yedele.
Good afternoon,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this program. Unfortunately, I'm in transit, but I hope that everybody is hearing me. And I like this topic because I think in the last few months and maybe years, I've been talking about the problem of infrastructure in Nigeria. But I would like to start from unfortunately too, I wasn't able to hook up before now. but I would like to start on something that I have found out over the years, because over the years we keep talking about corruption, 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 as if corruption is our major problem in Nigeria. And I would like to differ a bit. I do not believe, with all respect to other people's opinion, that corruption is our problem in Nigeria. I think our twin problems in Nigeria are indiscipline and incompetence. Indiscipline in the sense that, look, if you are driving on the road and you get to an intersection, if you are a disciplined person, you do what is right. Trash all over the country, but be indisciplined. And people will tell me, argument with my wife, that, why other countries are very clean, like Dubai and so many other countries. And she was of the opinion that it is because of the fear that somebody will catch you, you will be prosecuted for throwing. I think the reason why those countries are clean, and I'm just using that as an example, is because majority of the people in those places are and I use this to explain to my friends to say that, look, my people, does it mean that a single person, even with arms and technology, has the ability to monitor 1,000 people? No. It means that of the 1,000 people commit crime, or maybe about one policeman will look after that 100, and he has 900 citizens who are in click with him to watch over those 100 that are criminals. Criminally minded people move from one place to the other because there are 901 police men, including the 900 that are who know that they have a duty in that precinct. So I think indiscipline is a problem. Secondly, I think incompetence is a problem. Putting round uh, pegs in square holes and putting square pegs in round holes is also a problem, you know. And these two have a host in a bureaucracy. And I listened to my auntie who just spoke. And all evils bring along religion, tribal, and so on and so forth. I think any progress, in spite of the concern of other bodies, have problem with an issue, you go on to create a body to another body, and when they are not making any progress, you create another body again. As we can see in the issue of traffic, police were responsible for ensuring that people conduct themselves when they are driving before. Now, when we started having problems, yellow fever was created. When we started having problems, road safety was created. When we started having problems, now we see all of the other states creating additional bodies to look after traffic. Like you have LASTMA in Lagos, like you have various uh, um, creations by the various states, and yet our traffic problems are still there because the drivers are indisciplined. They're incompetent. They don't learn how to drive properly. Nobody teaches them how to drive. Now let me come back to, and I want you to juxtapose this on the issue of these two evils that I have mentioned on the issue of infrastructure. And I was glad when my auntie was talking um, about the evil of unemployment, where the young people don't have job. Until we solve the power problem in Nigeria, we cannot make progress as a nation. I mean, it is tragic to talk about 5,000 megawatts to a population of 180,000 or more people. It is tragic. And even the 5,000 megawatts I mean, we cannot even swear that we have 5,000 megawatts on 24/7 basis. It's not as if we always have 5,000 megawatts. I work in an organization where we are capable of generating 4,000 megawatts alone. NDPAC as an organization has the capacity to generate 4,000 megawatts. I'm not sure that in the last 1 month, there's any day where we have exceeded 600 megawatts. And even this 600 megawatts, when at the end of the month we are paid for what we have uploaded on the national grid, all we get in return is about best 30% of what our bill is. So how can we make progress as a nation? I mean, we have many parts of the country today that are supposed to be generating income, like the Ondo South Central District, where I come from also. In 15 years, power supply to most of that senatorial district has been disconnected. I mean, this is a senatorial district covering 4 local governments in Nigeria. Look at the issue of roads. I would think that the government of Nigeria will declare a state. I would think that the government of Nigeria would declare a state of emergency on on the state of our roads and power in Nigeria. It is never too late. We need to declare a state of emergency on those 2 sectors so that I know this may sound funny, so that we can, for instance, use the pension fund and bring in 10,000 construction companies and maybe another 10,000 power generation companies and companies that can work on transmission lines and distribution lines, and that can enumerate those who are connected to power and ask them to start building roads, constructing roads all over the country, and building transmission lines and building power stations and refurbishing and modernizing, bringing at par the distribution system in Nigeria. The privatization that was done some years back has not brought any advantage to us as a people. I can tell you today that the Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited has totally refurbished the power supply, and I'm using this just as an example, to the Ondo South Central District. The 33 kV and 11 kV networks and substations have been refurbished, yet it is taking the Benin Disco 1.5 years, and today they have only succeeded in giving maybe 50 houses in the 4 local governments power supply, and they have only 2 hours of power supply. And then when government talks about the willing buyer, willing seller, or the eligible customer declaration, what happens when any organization that has the ability to go into an area, you find out that the distribution companies will start raising issues. When a state government donates and gets substations, the distribution substations to be repaired, what happens? The discos refuse to energize them, even when NEMA had tested those facilities and have issued the certificates of compliance for them. So how can we continue to allow these incompetencies and this indiscipline to progress as a nation? the reason why young people don't have employment, and because I also have fallen into um, politics. I know the evil of unemployment. I know it. I receive letters every day of young men who graduated 12 years ago and have gone back to do their masters because they couldn't get a job, and yet they don't have jobs. But government, even those who are employed in government, the government establishments are overcrowded because politically, government has to continue to employ people who sit down to do nothing, who are not trained, who don't know what they are doing. They just go to the office in the morning and close at night. They are not assigned any responsibility or are given a job that is supposed to be. Now, if all of industries established over the late Chief Adibule Ajasi young men, who is going to bring investment to that part of the country? It is the usual thing all over in Ondo State. I'm not sure, apart from Akure and a few places, I'm not sure there's any local government where they enjoy more than 4 hours of electricity supply in Nigeria. I'm not sure. And this is a place where people can go into agriculture and produce things and set up industries. So when an investor is bringing money to invest in a project in Nigeria, they are discouraged because there's no access to raw materials, there's no access to their market. They don't have power supply, they don't have water. Ondo State, for instance, has not one single house connected with pipe-borne water, clean water in the whole of Ondo State. And the story is not different in most parts of the country. So I think we need to adopt a different method to ensuring that infrastructures are, are refurbished and brought to the same level as in other countries. For me, government has to declare a state of emergency in these areas. Government has to ensure that we build all the roads, because with interconnectivity of the roads, investors can come in where there are where there is power supply and invest. But even if you have power supply in Akoko, for instance, and you don't have access to raw materials, or you bring in your spare parts and it takes 3 months to clear it from a proper work, how can that company make profit? Or if they have produced their product and then they cannot take it from where they hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I was hearing some noise. I didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, okay, okay. Just 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Just round up.
Yes. Okay. So, or when they have produced the end product, they cannot take it to the markets. They cannot. I mean, if for instance you have a product that you need to export, and it takes you 6 months or 3 months to get through the web at the port before you can export them, what will happen? A country where only the transmission line has capacity for only 5,000 megawatts cannot make progress. A country where the distribution network has capacity for only about 8,000 or less megawatts cannot make progress. And I want to end by saying that for me, power supply is very spiritual. The Bible, and I'm sorry to use this example, that's the only thing that comes to mind when I talk about this. The Bible talks about my people perish for lack of vision, for lack of knowledge. Now, even if you have 10 eyes and you are in a dark place, can you have vision in the literal sense? So it is with the country. When we don't get our power sector right, we cannot make progress as a nation. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you very much. I think you laid the foundation for some of our challenges. Okay. I think we would like to go to Engineer Adeyoye straight away.
Morning, Mr. Odoye, CED. Am I audible?
Yeah, good morning, madam. Good morning.
Morning. How are you? Morning.
Very well, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Morning. I've listened to all the participants, and I think they've already, including Auntie, they already gave a strong note the direction this will take. Of representing Excellency, when he got the letter, as a matter of fact, he said, well, you are more than capable to speak, and I know you this is not just to say what the challenges we have faced, but as a government, and you being a passionate person, you'll be able to speak to what we're trying to do to address all of the challenges that we have on ground. So on that note, I would once again like to greet everybody, past presidents of societies, professional bodies on board. I'm indeed delighted and honored to join this webinar and all the stakeholders at this conference, themed Nigeria at 60, Searching for Infrastructure Reality. It's my pleasure and I welcome everyone here present. I would like to say something at this note. Infrastructure, definition of infrastructure, Nancy has already recapped it. It refers to economic and social facilities which are provided by governments or sometimes in partnership with private operators, organizations for the social economic development of individuals and society at large. It includes structures of facilities such as roads, bridges, and others, which enhance the quality of lives, determine the level of development, and make life worth living in any community. It creates an enabling environment and exerts a permissive impact on meaningful human development. According to World Bank, every 1% of government funds spent on infrastructure leads to an equivalent 1% increase in GDP, which invariably means that there is a correlation between any meaningful inputs in infrastructure development, which affects economic growth indices. Hence, the value of infrastructure cannot be underplayed. Before we assumed office in May 2019, previous administrations in the state had made considerable efforts at increasing the stock of infrastructure that we have. I recollect speaking at webinar in NSE UK 2 weeks ago, and Saturday 2 weeks ago to be precise, and I did say something. I said, what exactly happened to us? Where did we miss it as a nation? The era of the petrodollar, the 70s, saw us with we had the National Development Plan that we meticulously followed. In the 80s, somewhere along the line, we lost it. We lost it, and it looked like we were beginning now to thin out. The growth began. We could see a downward trend in our growth pattern. The number of roads, paved roads, infrastructure began to dwindle, yet our revenues began to increase. Where am I going in all of this? One thing is clear. We have that infrastructure challenge. We know where we are. And Idele has rightly captured it. I cannot agree more or less. It is spiritual. At the root of it all is corruption. Corruption is the spirit. And I'm sorry I'm using that, but that's the only way that qualifies where we are as a nation. I've listened to Auntie, and I'm going to address all of the issues she said all about. And I would like, at this point, I would specifically like to speak as it relates to roads infrastructure. I will tell you as a state what we met on ground, what we have done, and then going forward what we must do. And a conscious effort by every stakeholder here to change the paradigm shift. Roads remain the essential network for the non-virtual world, as infrastructure upon which almost all other infrastructure depends, and as a path for human. For us in Lagos State, we are aware that strategic investment in infrastructure produces a foundation for long-term growth, and we are also equally aware that the attendant impact of infrastructure will generate a strong economic base for the productivity of the people and increase employment. During the presentations that we're doing at all of the tech presentations just before inauguration. One of the things that we told ourselves that when we are leaving, what are the KPIs that we like to go with, that people can mark us and say, we said we will do this, and what have we been able to do? Everybody knows that the vehicular density in Lagos is well over 264 cars per kilometer. We told ourselves by the time we are going, and every year we'll try to reduce that by at least 10%. By the time we are going, you will have succeeded in reducing that vehicular density by as much as 40%. In doing that, what would we do? We will need to open up more roads. We will need to be able to pave more roads and open up more areas, increase interconnectivity, have a zero tolerance to pothole, remove gridlocks, and institute all of the traffic, the team's agenda, within the team's agenda, try to work in a holistic manner to address all of this. With those KPIs, we tell ourselves, people can mark us and see demonstrable evidence of what we're doing. Like Mr. God will always say, you don't need to like our face, but if you see what we're doing and you are convinced that this is really, and it's something that you can actually mark and put a number to it and see how well these people are doing, then will have made a difference. When we came on board, the six things agenda, everybody knows what the things agenda is now, and the provision of road infrastructure stands under the T in the things pillar agenda. So what we have simply done was this: we had a policy that we set to ourselves. We would complete all ongoing strategic projects. So our plans were deliberate, that we would complete all of the outstanding. After all, government is a continuum. There is no point in reinventing the wheel. Because there is a continuum, once we have the strategic master plan of Lagos and any project that will meet on ground, and the strategic and fit into that, we'll endeavor and we'll make sure that we complete that project. That has seen us going to finish up projects like the Penn Cinema project. That everybody will agree that if we finish it by the grace of God next month, we'll have succeeded in decongesting that part of the road. Just as we're rounding up that, we have decided that right from Ododubaga, in line with the things like the STFP, we also will put a TBS, a quality bus service lane, right from Ododubaga that will take you across there to link up the new Abule-Egba 13.6 kilometer that we have done as well. So you can see the network that we're trying to create, just to be able to reduce travel time, right from Penn Cinema, Abule-Egba, through Penn Cinema and back to Ododubaga. That completes that loop. So it was a capital program for us that we will complete our strategic ongoing projects in line with the team's agenda, under which the Penn Cinema will finish, under which the Lagos-Badagry Expressway. Coincidentally, Lagos-Badagry Expressway is one project that we ought to have finished. It started well over 10 years ago, and it's a sad reality that to date, that stretch of road has not been finished. And so we told ourselves, we'll be honest with ourselves, we will take these things in leaves that we can chew, so long as it's still budgetary funding that we're using. And so in December, we said, we will get to Trade Fair. We'll get to Trade Fair Junction by December. And before the end of the year, we will actually get to Lasu Junction, leaving the next Lasu Junction to Okokomaiko, because the contract for us as a state government is that from Merrickmore, we will get to Okokomaiko Junction. And thereafter, the FMW will take the Okokomaiko up to Semeboda. So that we're very deliberate about, and our plans are working as agreed. We also will increase, like I told you, the KPIs for us, mark my words, and we'll reduce the vehicular density of the road 10% every year for the first 4 years of the 264. By the time we're leaving, we will have succeeded in reducing that vehicular density to 220. We will increase the stock of paved roads, which means we'll open up new areas and new alignments, and then we'll also try to reduce travel time by improving traffic junctions all around. That has seen us done about 6 now. We have done right now, we've done Allen Avenue Junction, we've done Lekki, we've done Ikoyi Junction Link Road. So we have a program to remove all of those gridlocks that we have at those junctions, open up more areas, reduce travel time, and at the same time to reduce vehicular density. And then on the zero pothole tolerance for potholes, we would also make sure that the roads are all maintained all year round. But more importantly, that anytime we decide we have done something, we're never having to go back there. That's where the issue of maintenance comes. I'm going to talk about, when it comes to local indigenous contractors, what we're doing as a state to encourage them, and what they must also do to ensure that they remain relevant and that the government continues to patronize them. So, going further, you would see that along that line, when we said we'll open up new roads, what have we done as a state to do the game changer? We decided that the regional road, Lagos Expressway right now as it is, the sensitivity level is at F stage. If we do not do, we are already at a break stage. If we do not do anything now, in another less than 2 years, it's going to be crisis. So we thought of it and said, we would open up the regional road, right from VGC across, and we'll come out at the Freedom Road junction, at the Freedom Road, where you have the proposed Orange Island. That is an 8.4 kilometer road with a bridge, 2 bridges right at the VGC junction, and then you also have the Lagoon Bridge by Ikota, and landing at that. That's a precursor to the Fourth Mainland Bridge. The whole idea is, once we say we're going to reduce vehicular density and reduce travel time, and we'll open up new areas and new alignments. So this fits clearly into that vision. That project, as I speak, is awarded. The contractor is on site. The clearing is done. They're already doing some investigation, so they're pumping, and then of course we can begin the piling operations in the coming weeks. So that is ongoing. You've seen us trying to complete what we met on ground that is strategic in Pennsylvania. You've seen us open up new one areas now with this regional road that we're talking about. And only last week we went into step 3 of the RFP process for the Fourth Mainland Bridge. That's a project that is estimated to cost about $2.2 billion. Coming from Abraham Adesanya Junction, crossing Langbasa, across the Bayeku, all over, and busting out about the region of Ogun State boundary to be able to link up to Lagos Badagry Expressway and up on the Lagos Abuja route. So the whole idea is to open up new areas in Lagos. But even as we're doing that, which is a major one, we realize that this is something that as a government we cannot take. We cannot take it, so it has to be by way of private PPP funding. But no investor would like to come if your ease of doing business is terrible, if you are not open or transparent in your procurement process. So we were real to ourselves to say, we will make sure that this bid process is as transparent as possible. And how do you do that? On our part as a government, it's not just Ministry of Works and Infrastructure that is championing this. The Office of PPP, the Office of PPP is right with us. And then you have dedicated transaction advisors. On the legal side, you have Mrs. Alani Ajayi working with us. You also have on the financial side, you have KPMG, and then you have advisors, technical advisors, Mrs. AEC, together with the Render UK. Yes, you might wonder, you might say, when there are consultants in Nigeria, why is it that you are using a local at the same time too you are going out with a foreign one? If this funding is going to come, and I'm not saying that the competencies I'm glad that Mr. Maya Aditiba is also on board. I'm not saying that the competence of the locals are not good enough for us, but international investors, they feel a little bit more confident when they know that one of them is also in the group. Even though you have the locals, you have AEC as a consortium working on it, they also have the UK partners in this. So those are the things that we're doing to open up new areas, reduce vehicular density, and increase the stock of infrastructure that we have. Roads like Ijeda Road as well, that will be linkages to this Fourth Mainland Bridge, are also ongoing as I speak. That's a job that started in January, and to date, it's almost about 35% completed. We hope, and if you keep working at this pace, that by March next year, that 6-kilometer road is delivered, while we'll take the next 6 kilometers from Itamaga Junction to Berigbe. All of this that we're doing this in line with our vision. When you have your agri-products areas like the Imota Rice Mill, Imota Rice Mill is in Imota. You need to open up all of those areas around there. So we have alternative routes. We're beginning in the next year's budget, having to look at all of those areas that would really open up those areas into making transportation easier for them. And don't forget that the state government's asphalt plant is also in Imota. So around the whole of that hub, just like you have regional food markets in Imota, we've decided to have alternative routes, which we've almost completed that process now, that we can just open up that entire agri area now up and timber hill in Angola. So the whole of that network of roads is opened up for infrastructure. So that explains our vision in line with the things agenda and the strategic transport master plan for Lagos. That people will say, yes, these people said they were going to make sure that in the next 4 years they reduce vehicular density by this. They are going to ensure that the stock of the paved roads that they have increases from this number of kilometers with the addition of these other roads that I'm talking about. Where will we see ourselves at the end of 4 years? at the end of it, the travel time is also an index that we would like to use. But for me as a person, I'm very cautious when I use that. And your daily writing captured me. Where you have indiscipline, it's very hard for your travel time to decrease. If people decide to drive one way, and the travel time will always increase, because that's not so. Whether you have increased number of payments, whether you increase your stock, you open up new areas, when people are in this and they remain disciplined, it's very hard to reduce your travel time. We must, as a nation, change our ways and attitudes towards infrastructure, how we use them. We must learn to take ownership of them anytime that it's provided. The way we are going with organized private sector is something that we'd like to partner with. We know we cannot do it alone, and that's why we'll have under different schemes. We have the PIIP. 2 weeks ago, last week, to be precise, saw us partner with Access Bank, and we did commission those network of roads in Oniru. It's a creative invention that we have done, that people, particularly the organized private sector, can partner with the state government. They can see the genuineness, they come up with their plans, and then we tell them what can we do as an incentive, what can we do together. We're willing, we'll partner with them, we'll give them incentives in terms of, okay, you can have your land use charge reduced, you can have advertising rights on some roads, we can give you concession in so many areas. And then they take ownership of some roads, and they ensure that regularly that area is well maintained by them. This is in addition to what we are planning to do, to have some high streets be maintained, because we know that government cannot do them alone. When you do these things and with the KPI set, a lot of things can be managed before they go haywire. That's also something that we are hoping to do. We also started the urban regeneration. A lot of the areas in GRA, in Ikeja, in Ikoyi, in the central hub, Victoria Island, we started the urban generation process. All in a bid to ensure that at the end of the day, we have quality infrastructure. Because I will tell you, whichever indices you quality of air, water transport, road infrastructure, Nigeria far lags behind. South Africa, as far back as 2012 to 2019, has seen that index we dropping year by year. That tells us that something is wrong. And we are, as a state, we are poised to address that drop. And that's what has ensured that we are focused and determined to do this. But for me, the vehicle density you can succeed, but the real game changer is only when the real project picks off. As a state, the red line is, everybody knows where we are on the blue line. We are yet to finish that from Marina to Okoko. But I can tell you the good news that the red line, which the federal government is on with, is likely to even finish faster than the blue line. The cost of that project is about 100.4 billion. We will succeed in being creative to fund it. We do, because we know this cannot come under our budgetary provisions. The consortium, every time the CBN mops up reserve resources, monetary policy committee, they meet, they mop up excess liquidity, and then they decide to just put that in the vault of CBN. And then we met banks, selected banks, to say, rather than mop up this money and put in the vault of CBN, can you not dedicate this money to infrastructure provision? And in this case now, let us be able to dedicate it to the Lagos State's portion of the red line. And I'm happy to say that has worked out well now. We are in the process of concluding. About 93 billion out of that, after that 100.4, is ready for take now. Which means our red line can kick off immediately to the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and that for me is a real game changer, because we need to remove all of this heavy axle loadings away from the road. As a state, we are beginning to design it looks like, it appears we're designing for the bad habits of people. We're seeing us changing aspects, or even semi-rigid pavements from 30 MPa to 45 MPa, because these trucks, we are practicing the idea of, as a people, we do not like our way bridges are all gone, say we don't use them anymore. So we're bringing them back. Lagos-Ekpa Express, everybody will ask me, what is it? The government has plans, and I'm sure in the next 1 month or so, all things being equal, when those things materialize, we'll see the rehabilitation of Lagos-Ekpa Express right from the Ekpe Junction back to Abijo phase 1, and Abijo back to Ebramadesoya phase 2, in semi-rigid pavement and in full rigid pavement on the dedicated lane and the truck lane. But of course, these things cost money. You are partnering with the private sector to provide this money, and every investor would, of course, like to have their money, their returns of interest or investment on whatever they put down. So we need to come up with the reality and face these things the way they are. But above all, and in conclusion, what Enyo really has said about our incompetence as a people, our indiscipline, the bureaucracy that we do, we need to be real with ourselves. If we really want our infrastructure to go the way it's supposed to be, we need to ask ourselves, are we doing things right? Anytime that we are asked to do things, are we doing it diligently, with integrity, with purpose, and with an excellent spirit, that we will be proud of ourselves to be able to put our insignia and say, yes, we did this. And I'm sure there are many indigenous companies that will do well and do that. But majority will not qualify. There are many, but we really need to look out for those many. When I see the quality of roads done, so that has also made us as a state to begin to qualify contractors on the basis of their performance. We have institutionalized the KQC process in road pavement. It's sad that when we do roads, we come back after 6 months, coming back to rehabilitate that same road. Contractors, and I tell people, no contractor likes to be supervised. It's the KQC processes that you institutionalize and you put in place that will make everybody sit up. Nobody will want to patronize it, and for the employment to go down, for the employment levels to go down, we need to patronize our locals. But we as locals also must be determined that we get serious with ourselves. We must be ready to learn, relearn, and retrain ourselves. Find out international best practices, what works. What will we do so that we can compete with these multinationals? Until we do that, it will just be paying lip service to things. And then we must not allow nepotism or to cloud our judgment, to say anytime that we have to provide infrastructure, we must ensure that we get the best of the best that will ensure desirable outcomes right from the onset. When we do it well, the outcomes are likely to be good. But when we have sacrificed competence on the altar of nepotism, then at the end of the day, what we have is exactly what we're getting now. And so I'm sure this discussion, this platform will provide opportunity for all us to go back, do things that we are used to doing in a particular manner, and be truthful to ourselves to say, if Nigeria is 60 years, if we must go on to the next level, we need to change our way and manner, the way we do things, particularly in our procurement process. We need to. On that note, I would like to just say, as an administration, that we make bold to say that we have shown a deep sense of responsibility and commitment towards delivering the strategic link roads in line with the State Transport Master Plan and the theme's agenda. However, we need support from other sources. Infrastructure is something that promotes our culture. We would like to continue doing that. People must know that when we provide drains, we provide the roads, they will only last us for as long as we take ownership of them. There's need for us to change our habits as a people. I've said it again and again. When we do this, these roads will last longer. And we'll refrain from escape dumping of refuse on our roads. Thank you. Thank you for listening. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, that was quite an enlightening thing. So if you it right, I believe that every other state can get it right. And it was a very, very lengthy and all-inclusive presentation. Now, let me go. We're talking about Nigeria at 60, searching for infrastructure reality. And therefore, we have gathered today all the professionals in the built environment to be able to lend their voices onto this particular subject matter, because it is important, because all of us have a role to play in all of this. If you must do, it must design, builders must build, and so many things. So to that extent, we're going to have conversation from every member environment professional bodies. So let me start with Sobio Alabo Charles with David Charles, if he can lend his voice to this issue of Nigeria at 60, searching for infrastructure reality. Alabo Charles David is the president of the Nigerian Institution, I'm sure he's with us, and of surveyors.
Your Excellencies, dear participants, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to join you in giving my presentation. Nigeria at 60, searching for infrastructure reality, the surveying perspective. A good number of participants have talked about what has befallen our nation. They've talked about corruption, they've talked about insincerity, they talked about everything that has made us something different in the eyes of the world. I will come to each of these issues, but let me go through the surveying perspective first. I wish to extend my appreciation to the organizers of the Construction Technology Development Virtual Conference 2020 with the theme Nigeria at 60 Searching for Infrastructure Reality. It gives me immense pleasure to speak on Nigeria at 60 Searching for Infrastructure Reality Surveying Perspective, and I feel honored and privileged. However, before we continue, let us look at some words and phrases that may help us in understanding this task. Infrastructure is a noun, a compound word for that matter. Infrastructure, which literally means substructure, it has been defined earlier, and it refers to the basic physical organization, structures, installation, facilities, and services that help a government, community, or organization run, including buildings, transport and communication systems, sewage treatment plants, power generation, water supplies, and what have you. And searching is the present participle of the verb to search, which simply put is to try to find something or someone by looking or seeking carefully and thoroughly. Reality is a noun of the adjective real, which means actually existing as a thing, occurring in fact, not imagined or supposed. Thus, reality is the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic, notional, or imaginary idea of them, whether they are known or unknown. Surveying, simply put, is means of making relatively large-scale, accurate, and precise measurements of the Earth's surface. It includes the measurement, the reduction, and interpretation of determined data to usable form, and conversely, the establishment of relevant positions and size according to given measurements. And that's where the problem is. Everybody, every professional knows the role of surveyors. But I ask the question, how many of our professionals, when they have a survey need, really look for a qualified surveyor to provide this due special data that is very highly required for planning and for projects? The surveying has two similar but opposite functions. The determination of existing relevant horizontal and vertical position, the establishment of marks to control construction or to indicate boundaries. Surveying is the bedrock of all meaningful physical development. Among the professionals in the built industry, the surveyor is the first to go to site. And a good information that I want to put across to all the participants is that those of us in the built industry, the 7 of us have recently come together to form a very strong organization. We believe that we, going forward, look out for our interests and ensure that we don't cross each other's boundary and do things as they ought to be done on paper. Perspective is a word now referring to a particular attitude towards or way of gathering something. And datum levels refers to physical reference point with known elevation above mean sea level. It is a surface to which all measurements are referred to. And geodetic datum refers to a set of parameters that define the size, shape, position, and orientation of a given reference ellipsoid with respect to the real Earth, which we in geodesy refer to as geoid. The task before us, therefore, is to show the place of surveying and achieving infrastructure reality in Nigeria. The topic for today is basically concerned with infrastructure surveys. However, we cannot help but speak about other forms of surveys because one way or the other, they are interrelated. We'll be speaking about our past, our future, our present and future of surveying in our society. Now, the place of surveying infrastructure. Let me also define ground penetration radar, migration location, and building information modeling are being extensively used to geolocate below the surface utility networks and hidden construction, reduce engineering risks, and build a 3D map to avoid surface and subsurface structure. Surveying helps in transportation, in that the acquisition of satellite imagery and preparation of digital terrain models of the selected corridor will provide information on cross-sections, longitudinal profiles that will help to determine the quantity of earthworks and other decisions on the project. Surveying contributes to improved runways and installation of navigation aids at the airports through the use of global navigation systems ensures that. Bathymetric surveys are key to port development and charting of navigation channels. Modern approach to bathymetry presents position and depth data in digital format, which can be interfaced and related to epoch before data output. Surveying assists in the selection of the site for location of ground stations for a telecommunication satellite. Surveying through satellite geodesy contributes to launching of satellite itself. Now, the ideal situation. What happens before construction? Every project, before it begins, must have had a survey of the site. And it depends upon what you want to use the project for. I've seen a number of project sites where flooding has been a major problem. But it is very important and easy for a surveyor to go to the site and look at telltales on the site and predict highest expected water level or previous flood levels. Only those who have eyes can see. Do we do that? We don't. Depending on the project, surveyors may need to conduct different types of survey, one being a topographic survey. If the project involves breaking ground like a dam or tunnel, underground service location survey is also required. And these are things that require very precise measurements. The use of 3D laser scanning has become the standard for infrastructure surveying, as it allows the gathering of much more accurate data in a time-efficient manner. It also greatly aids in creating the best design possible and helps identify such sites. Now, before the construction, I have said you need to do a survey. After the survey, it is a survey that the architect uses to design his structure. Perhaps he may need topographic survey, so the heights and elevations are also put there. And if these heights and elevations are related to the same datum all over this country, it will be very easy to go from project to project and know that they all have uniform datum, project datum, rather than every project you want to do, you create a local datum for it. It doesn't work in modern day construction. Now you do set-out survey is also required. This set-out, probably to do that, you need to have controls, beacons, monuments, and what have you. These things are coordinated. And it's from these controls that you do to do your set-out. And these serve as a guide during the construction to ensure accuracy. And during the construction itself, checking and validating design data to make sure there are no errors are done, and managing data for full reporting to the project engineer or contractor during each stage of construction. Providing documentation for support any variation claims that changes in design or quantities of suitable materials. I've heard one of the speakers talk about bitumen layer now. It is very possible that if you are using surveyors in the industry of construction, the construction industry, for you to be able to measure the thickness of bitumen, because we are the people who are trained to do measurements in the field. And if you are working with the surveyors, I'm sure some of these problems will be able to overcome them. Now, depending on the project, surveyors may need to conduct different types of survey. One being a topographic survey, I've said that. Now, during the construction work, checking and validating design data to ensure there are no errors, we've taken that. And after the construction, you need to carry out as-built surveys. And now you have things like building information, modeling and such. Related technologies are always at hand to support you. And these things also assist facility managers in future to look after these projects. Survey ensures that construction adheres to the design plan as approved by the relevant authority. Now, final thoughts. Surveying plays a huge role in ensuring that infrastructure built do deliver, and surveyors play an important part in each project from planning to finish. Now, where were we? Where we were in the past. Surveying began probably in ancient Egypt, as we are told, but in Nigeria, it is the colonial masters that brought surveying to us, and many of them were military officers, and that's why they were able to map the whole country. By the early 50s, we've had maps, basic maps, one in 25,000, one in 50,000, and some of those maps are only being recently reviewed by the Office of the Surveyor General. Many improvements and refinements have been incorporated in all basic surveying instruments. These have resulted in increased accuracy and speed of achieving it. Now, innovative digital solutions where we are now. There are many various technologies that have augmented the finding of the subsurface infrastructure. 3D reality capture solutions, mobile laser scanners, LiDAR, drones, and thermal imaging systems are gaining footing in the subsurface utility mapping for construction projects. These sensing and sensor technologies are beginning to capture more data more efficiently about assets, their conditions, and the soil they sit in. Technology innovations are also expected in infrastructure mapping solutions. Recent years have seen significant technical advances in the way we collect, store, and analyze geospatial data. And I tell you, we have a long way to go because many of the indigenous companies are yet to really break into this technology thing. And until we do that, we cannot effectively compete with the expatriate companies, as we have already been told by the representative of the Lagos State Governor. As technology and markets develop, it is likely that future software and hardware will emerge that are not known today. Now, where are we today? The use of augmented reality to see the subsurface utility infrastructure is a fascinating technology trend. VG is a tool in this field and analyzes the capabilities of the three technologies: augmented reality, GIS, and Microsoft HoloLens, and allows for immersive experience. Geospatial data is converted into augmented reality displays and holograms that enable the field workers to see the subsurface structure to make informed decisions to plan excavations for subsurface construction. Like as earlier said, you cannot do any major construction without knowing exactly upon which you are going to base your elevations. And in Nigeria, the Clark 1880 spheroid ellipsoid is what is adopted. Figures 1 to 7, eventually, as I will show you, shows some of the modern surveying and mapping equipments and projects. Now, over the years, so many national policies have been initiated. And the issue is, the laws are there, but do we obey them? Now, subsurface information is a national challenge, which requires stakeholders to collaborate across all sectors. The role of the national government is thus critical. Over the years, the Office of Surveyor General of the Federation, in accordance with a mandate, obtained federal government council resolutions on surveying and mapping. Some of these related to infrastructure are as follows: national policy on the use of adopted 7 transformation parameters for the seamless migration of data between the two coordinate systems, the World Geodetic System, which is WGS84, and the MENADATU, Clark 1880. The National Council of Works in 2014 passed that. A national policy on a 5-year periodic as-built survey of any landed property for proper land inventory and planning in Nigeria. Memorandum on the need of the Office of the Surveyor General to coordinate the as-built and as-laid surveys of submarine cables, telecommunications. Council advised OGS to carry out its duties in collaboration with Nigerian Communications Commission. Why do you need to do all that? You cannot lay a cable today and the next day somebody comes to dig across the place, or takes a rig in there to go and position a rig, and then he cuts the cable. This is the reason why these things have to be obeyed. National policy on the need for telecommunication regulators and service crew to collaborate with the Office of Surveyor General in carrying out as-built surveys of subsurface applications, facilities for safety and proper documentation. That was 2016. A memorandum on the need to carry out as-built survey of subsurface utilities and infrastructure within 10 meters of depth of size of project aimed at acquisition, dissemination of geospatial data relating to Nigeria. Again, that was sometime in 2016. Council urged all relevant stakeholders to collaborate in populating Office of the Surveyor General in building database of as-built surveys of subsurface utilities within 10 meters of the project. Memorandum on inclusion of topographic data in the survey plan before applicable, both on submarine, I mentioned that, and also on the individual tattoo plots. Council of Land, Housing and Urban Development Council or all tiers of government to approve the inclusion of topographic data and survey plan for government projects before approval of approving plan. Memorandum on the award of survey contracts, of route contracts. This one is very germane, very dear to my heart. The registered surveyors was really represented with modification to conform with the theme of the meeting tagged adequate traffic signage, an essential key to highway infrastructure, safety and comfort. National Council of Works in 2017, Council noted the need for the use of geospatial information to create database for national signage for emplacement, furniture and infrastructure. The use of survey techniques of radar and LiDAR in monitoring traffic signage, checking vehicular movement and recording traffic offenses such as flouting the speed limits, beating traffic lights, failure to respect traffic lights and all that. And then the survey of techniques are used to demarcate, survey, and ensure compliance with right-of-way as built surveys. National policy on the use of geospatial information technology in ICT, infrastructure inventory and management. That was in 2017. National policy on the engagement of registered surveyors in setting out tax of various building elements and its corresponding verification, 2018. National policy on the mandatory submission of all utility surveys to the U.S. Office of the Surveyor General and State Surveyors General by all institutions mandated to provide infrastructure. National Council of Lands, Housing and Urban 2018. A national policy on the mandatory request by contractors in construction industry for information on utilities and infrastructure within their coverage areas from the Office of the Surveyor General and other Surveyors General of the Federation before embarking on construction work. That was in 2018. A national policy that government at all levels should employ geospatial data and other parameters provided by surveyors to determine well ahead of time failure on roads by use of instrumentation. Again, that was in 2018. Now, what are the importance of data? Where data is described and recorded using common data standards and data transformation processes, the ease at which it can be used across systems and software increases. Common standards and data transformation processes lead to workplace efficiency by reducing time and effort required by end users to understand and use the data. Without a standard or robust specification, the quality cannot be measured between practitioners and equipment. Every country will have its own unique needs, and often a specification will need updating, altering, and to accommodate. From a utility perspective, standards are of critical importance, since special references involved. For example, spectral position of utility is essential if the coordinates were determined by handheld GPS with an accuracy of between 1 to 5 meters. This could lead to significant problems in construction and maintenance. I can even tell you that we have these satellites in space. Yes, they give us our positions, but those who own the superpowers, once there is a problem, they do what they call selective availability. And if you are using any of the satellites at that time, you can never be accurate. And that's the reason you must involve those who really understand positioning when it comes to giving you location and data. A special reference to the subsurvey asset is important, which needs to be defined according to the standards established and survey procedures and protocols. Now, these are some of the equipments that are used today: UAVs, unmanned aerial vessels, even on water. You can also have unmanned amorphous vessels. All these are LiDAR products. These equipments, I think they are, Office of the Surveyor General has a number of them. Some of our survey consultants, I know of a chap in Lagos, one or two of them, who have a number of them, even in Port Harcourt, people like Digital Horizon, they have a number of these equipment. This one I also have in my own office, called Dave Consultants. I'm not advertising. We have this GPRS, can go as far as 30 feet deep. You require them at bridgeheads. If you are going to do construct a bridge, of course you need to know the different types of soils at the bridgeheads for the engineers to be able to plan adequately for its crossings. This is an example of a road survey. You can see the red lines indicate the boundaries, and in between you see the buildings. This is the reason why you must have a proper right-of-way surveys, so that we don't keep on coming to destroy buildings and pay compensations to people. These are maps. One is a UAV map, and the other is a topographic map, I think, of the same area, but not covering exactly. There are common areas between the two that you can see. And then this is a map of Nigeria showing existing and proposed cost stations. The cost stations are the ones that give you the signals for you to be able to do continuous observing reference stations, they are called, managed by Office of the Surveyor General and some individuals in Lagos State. Our colleagues also have the cost stations that are continuously providing positions for people who need to use them to do their survey. And these are the ones map of Nigeria showing 40-kilometer activity limits of existing core stations. Now, the Office of the Surveyor General has also produced maps of Abuja and state capitals. I'm sure if you go to their bookshop, you will be able to lay your hands on them. Now, the way forward. Construction, operations, and maintenance project requires an understanding of subsurface infrastructure and different classifications of the infrastructure. These range from soil structures, rock patterns, hydrology, man-made utilities, subsurface construction, cables, and sewers. A construction project is fundamentally has huge risks associated with safety, cost, and schedule if during the pre-construction phase that is incomplete and inaccurate subsurface information. If the subsurface infrastructure is not detected prior to construction, it can result in significant additional costs across the entire project design, planning, and construction workflow. One cannot ignore potentially high risks to construction personnel and existing infrastructure. Every country in the world is facing similar background infrastructure problems. Unreliable existing record data and subsurface utility congestion, among others. While the subsurface has attracted the attention of the survey equipment providers, the benefits of the new technology innovations need to be communicated and exploited by the construction companies, governments, and even project owners and surveying organizations. The ease with which the construction companies can unravel the mysteries of the subsurface is imperative for the successful project delivery of a construction project. Professionals in the built industry need to give due attention to proper surveying to speed up their construction processes, reduce engineering risks, and improve productivity and ensure quality and safety. We are lucky in this part of the country. We do not have too much of, in fact, I've never heard about sinkholes. In California, there is a place that is filled up with sinkholes. So if you do not do proper investigation, you probably build houses and one day you find a man sleeping on his bed has completely disappeared into the terrain below. Now, in conclusion and recommendations, we know surveying helps in informed decision making and thus provides good governance. Surveying is the bedrock for all meaningful physical development and should precede all forms of infrastructural development. In the search of infrastructural reality, let us remember that if you cannot map it, you cannot manage it. And again, advise our countrymen and women to involve registered and qualified surveyors in every project to be planned and put on the earth surface. Because it is only surveyor who gives you the position, who gives you what is happening, and also tells you how you can get to the place. Now, it gives me great pleasure to have taken part in this, and as I must said, my special thanks goes to Mrs. Sally Omoba Kabo, who is a Director of Infrastructure Surveying, Office of the Surveyor General, for working with us and collaborating with us in producing this presentation. I thank you very much for listening, and I wish all of you well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a very, very, decisive, paper, and I hope you'll be able to share the paper with us because, like I said, November edition. So we'll be glad if you could share the paper with us, the overall, report that will be done. This conversation is also being recorded, and it's going to be onto our YouTube media channel.